Company PANICS loses lawsuit, cancels black women-only investment deals. Coming from the Washington Post, Fearless Fund settles with DEI foes, ends grant program for black women. The deal marks a setback for diversity, equity, and inclusion advocates who saw the lawsuit as an attack on efforts to address racial disparities in investment. The Fearless Fund is a venture capital company. However, they were discriminating against who they would accept as applicants to a grant program. The grant program would give away around $20,000 per person who applied, and it would go to a black woman business owner. So what's the problem with this? Well, first of all, the problem with this is, even if you want to be racist because you're really into it and you think it's a great idea, it's not legal. You can't decide by race who is going to be able to apply for a grant program. If you're the government, you can do that sometimes. If you're a private individual, even if you're trying to make money off of people like these people were, you still can't do that. Even if Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton come to your side, you still can't do that. But look at this. It's not just that. If you go to their website, this is their business model. Now, a venture capital company will invest money in an entrepreneur's company to try to get a return on investment. Venture capital companies can be very difficult to deal with. They're very aggressive, and they always have what they call an exit plan. They have an intention to put money into your company, and then in a couple of years, usually sell your company to someone else. By definition, that's pretty predatory, but that's the finance game. So there's nothing wrong with them saying that they're going to go into this business and specifically look for new black women entrepreneurs to invest in, except for the race issue. However, the money they were giving as grants, it wasn't the owner's money. It wasn't even the investor's money in the Fearless Fund. It was money that they were raising on pushing the idea of this social progress and this social agenda. They have institutional investors. Institutional investors are big companies that have lots of money. And of course, they're partly raising this institutional investor money on the basis that, hey, we're out there, we're doing great things, invest in our company on these great terms for us. And okay, they're doing that. So you would think, okay, so they're going to use that investor money and they're going to put it into these grants. No, they weren't putting the money into the grants. What it appears they were doing was they were looking for, quote, corporate sponsors. Now, this is not the first venture capital company, the Fearless Fund. There are many venture capital companies. They've existed for years. They don't usually have, quote, corporate sponsors like an athlete might or some nonprofit organization might. But this one did. This one raised money from Bumble, Coke, Facebook, Honest Tea, Porsche, Steve Madden. And one of the owners of this venture capital company is on the board of directors of Steve Madden. Okay, so she gets money from Steve Madden as well in a couple of different ways. UPS, Walmart, well, are they expecting a return on their investment? No. They're donating to the cause of this agenda in investing only in black women entrepreneurs, excluding all other applicants for these grants based on race. So while this company was holding themselves out to be this wonderful venture capital company, giving out grants of money, trying to help black women entrepreneurs because all of these racial disparities exist and it's so impossible to get funding if you're a certain skin color or a certain gender, while they're holding themselves out as angels, they're really coming in as vultures and they're taking money from corporations, giving that money as grants, and then creating relationships with these entrepreneurs to then take pieces of their company through their venture capital fund. And it's been a little bit complicated to unravel what they were exactly doing. Like any company that's doing things, let's say, a little bit creatively, they don't necessarily tell you up front what they're trying to do, how they're going about it, and how the financial structure all works. So with that history in mind, and hey, if I'm wrong about any of this, anyone can let me know in the comments below. You can shoot me an email, but this is what I've uncovered from having a background in finance, researching the company, looking at several articles, and seeing that, yeah, they're a venture capital company, all right, but all of these wonderful grants that are race-based and gender-based seem to be coming from donations from big companies, not from the venture capital fund's investors. From the Washington Post, Fearless Fund settles with DEI foes, ends grant program for Black women. And the Washington Post asked this question pretty well. And this is actually quite important, this loss of theirs, because it sets a tone. From back in April of this year, from the Washington Post, can this firm invest in only Black women? This case will decide. Now, incidentally, again, it's obfuscated. It wasn't about them investing in companies. They were giving grant money to Black female entrepreneurs only, and they were passing money through their company that they had gotten as sponsorship donations from other large companies. It wasn't their money, and it wasn't an investment. It was a grant. And they make those grants because it's great for their reputation for the venture capital company. It's not their money, so they can't lose anything from it. And they get to create a lot of relationships, which is very difficult in venture capital, to find companies that you would want to invest in and build relationships with people. That's why venture capital companies usually lose a lot of money before they make a lot of money. They might lose on 4 or 5 deals before they make it big on one deal. The Fearless Fund, a venture capital firm, will shutter its grant program for Black women as part of a settlement with affirmative action opponents, resolving one of the most high-profile cases in the legal battle over diversity, equity, and inclusion. In a filing submitted Wednesday in federal court in Atlanta, an attorney for the conservative activist Edward Blum wrote that the parties had settled and asked the court to dismiss the case. Blum also helped lead the court challenge against Harvard University and the University of North Carolina that culminated last summer with the Supreme Court overturning race-conscious college admissions. Note to other people and companies and organizations discriminating against people because of their skin color. If Edward Blum comes after you, you're going to lose. Not every time and not right away, but eventually, yeah, he'll win, you'll lose. The party said Wednesday that the Atlanta-based firm agreed to permanently close its Fearless Strivers grant contest, which awarded $20,000 grants to Black female-owned businesses. In June, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit temporarily enjoined the venture capital firm from closing its application window and awarding the grants. Edward Blum, the winner in the lawsuit, had this to say, quote, race-exclusive programs like the one the Fearless Fund promoted are divisive and illegal. Opening grant programs to all applicants, regardless of their race, is enshrined in our nation's civil rights laws and supported by significant majorities of all Americans. Attorneys for the Fearless Fund called the agreement narrow and suggested the fund wanted to limit the case's impact to the 11th Circuit, which has jurisdiction over cases in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. They can go ahead and try to break the law again in another state. They can do it in California. They can do it in Arizona. Edward Blum will come after them, and they will embarrassingly get humiliated again for breaking the law so they could try to hustle some money, which is what this was. It was a hustle. It wasn't, oh, we're going to save people. Oh, we're doing something great for the world. No, use your own money. At least use your investors' money. Don't go looking for sponsorships and then essentially pass the money off as your own money. That's what this was, in my opinion. That's what makes it also additionally offensive. It's not just the racism problem. It's the problem of, would you just be straight with people and tell them what's going on? The way they were presenting money to investors and telling the public how they were presenting money to investors, I don't think that was illegal. To me, it was unethical. What they were doing by presenting this as only available to Black female entrepreneurs, that was definitely illegal, and that's what they lost on. Quote, the impact of resolving this matter is significant, and that a decision by 2 judges on the 11th Circuit will not bind the country, said Alfonso David, president and CEO of Global Black Economic Forum and an attorney in the case. Quote, the Fearless Fund can now continue their work toward expanding economic opportunity. There's a lot of cope going on with this story. From Afrotech, CEO Arian Simone announces dismissal of lawsuit that prevented Fearless Fund support for Black women's entrepreneurs. Yes, the lawsuit was dismissed. No, she didn't win it. And it would have been a lot more accurate to write a headline more similar to what the Washington Post did, or what NPR did. A venture capital grant program for Black women officially ends after court ruling. And then, yes, the parties agreed to dismiss the case because she capitulated. Back to the Washington Post. The settlement, nonetheless, is a loss for the proponents of diversity, equity, and inclusion, who saw the lawsuit as an attack on all efforts to remedy the effects of the nation's history of racial discrimination and address vast disparities of investment in businesses run by people of color. They also kind of saw it as a way to make quick money by having corporations pay for all the grant money, and then by promoting yourself as some kind of savior to Black female entrepreneurs. I don't like that. At least if you're going to do it, be a little bit more upfront about it. Make it so that anybody who looks at the website can tell within 2 minutes, okay, that's the game. It's not we're giving money to give people a new chance and we're giving other people's money away and we're taking credit for it. And if you're interested in someone who knows how to hustle, yes, the Reverend Al Sharpton is also involved in this story. Reverend Al Sharpton, a civil rights activist who has supported Fearless Fund's fight since the outset, counseled Fearless Fund Chief Executive Arian Simone on the decision to settle the case. He described the settlement as a sacrifice and a painful decision. Quote, if we had fought and Blum and them wanted to go all the way to the Supreme Court, we'd have lost the fight for generations, Sharpton said. No, you would have lost either at the Supreme Court or the Supreme Court would have turned it away and said, no, this is a dopey case. No, you can't take money from corporations, say that you're a savior, and then discriminate about who you're going to give money to based on a grant contest program. It may seem like a great idea, and sure, any hustle is a great idea if you can get away with it, but you didn't get away with it. It wasn't a great idea, and the Supreme Court would not have even taken this up. What they're hoping they can do is they can still run this in a couple of other states if Edward Blum isn't paying attention. Maybe they can get away with doing something else, and they do have a new thing that they're working on. I'll show you that in a minute. After the Supreme Court overturned race-conscious college admissions in June 2023, Blum's advocacy group filed a flurry of lawsuits against private sector firms, including the Fearless Fund. His lawsuits were among dozens targeting DEI efforts in higher education and the workplace, including programs at major firms such as Amazon, Meta, and Pfizer. He also took down a couple of law firms that had discriminatory internship programs. You just can't do it, even if you're a law firm, even if you're a venture capital firm, even if you're as big as Amazon. You can't do it. And just because you do it, it doesn't make it right. And just because you claim credit for being a wonderful person for doing it, it also doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it legal. There are plenty of organizations out there that will go after these kinds of illegal activities. Fearless Fund claims to have a $200 million fund available to facilitate small business loans. I don't know if the loans are good terms. I don't know that banks are really turning down entrepreneurs. They say that under-resourced entrepreneurs often struggle to secure capital as they're systemically shut out of traditional financing. They call them under-resourced entrepreneurs because they can get away with that. Their lawyers have told them, just try to stay within the law this time. Under-resourced businesses have often received lower levels of debt approvals and more predatory terms from lenders. I don't know what their terms are for these loans. I haven't seen the details. For these people to say, oh, they're predatory, we're not predatory, you might have to double check that. I don't know that that's really the case. Small business owners are essential to local economies and create opportunities for their community. So unlike a grant program, this is a loan program, so they can profit off of this loan program. And they're a business, they can go ahead and do business. That's legitimate. Just be careful with these kinds of loans because, as they say under qualifications, you have to have a credit score of greater than 600. Why would that make a difference? Because you're probably personally guaranteeing any of these business loans. Be very careful about these kinds of loans. Of course, be very careful about any kind of investments or loans. Forbes, which has made themselves kind of an industry of diversity, equity, and inclusion articles, asks this incredible question. What's going to happen to young, ambitious venture capital leaders of color in a post-DEI America? Well, I don't know. They're going to do legitimate work and follow the law and not discriminate against people, even if they really want to. I'm sure they don't all really want to. Some, I'm sure, do. And the laws have been challenged and have been clarified for everyone. I mean, we all kind of understood what they were, but for the people that didn't follow what the law was, now they comprehend what it is and they'll probably stay closer to being within it. But that's not what Forbes is saying. When Milton Speed was just starting out in private wealth management, he was selected to be part of Bank of America's Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Program. The opportunity was life-changing, he says. It was 2004, and he was in his early 20s, so the chance to gain entry into the racially homogenous finance industry at the time had rippling effects for his career trajectory. He had a good opportunity, and he took it. Exactly 20 years later, Speed admits he now feels like the country has taken leaps and bounds backwards. Quote, the attacks on DEI are short-sighted because it has tremendous effects in the near and the far future, he said. He's the executive director of VC Include, an organization that aims to accelerate investment into historically underrepresented venture capital and private equity fund managers. He's referencing the swift outcomes that almost immediately followed the landmark Supreme Court decision to ban affirmative action, a June 2023 move that most impacted college admissions based on race and ethnicity. The ruling cited Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, a case that found race-based admissions practices at Harvard and the University of North Carolina unconstitutional. A year later, the ban has already led to a decrease in black student admissions at Harvard and a drop in Asian student admissions for Yale's incoming class this year. The decision has also immensely influenced the U.S. workforce, which has seen a tightening of already limited opportunities for people of color. It's just more merit-based opportunities for people that are able to do the work. It does you no good to get a job that you're not qualified to do. This gentleman, Mr. Speed, when he got his job, I guarantee you, I didn't look into him, but I guarantee you, yes, he was given an opportunity, probably because of his skin color, because they wanted to do diversity, equity, and inclusion at the time in 2004, but I'm sure he had all the credentials, or he would not have gotten the job at that time. It was unthinkable to give people really important positions or really serious opportunities at the time if you had no qualifications for it. Now it's completely rampant. The concerted DEI rebranding efforts some conservatives have made has led to many corporate entities shuttering programs, slashing inclusion budgets, and deploying mass layoffs for equity leaders. The venture capital space is no exception to this. Fund managers of color who have made strides, albeit staggered ones, are watching what's happening very closely. Quote, the litany of attacks, litigious and otherwise, on this burgeoning space that we're all nurturing and cultivating is atrocious. It's terrible, said Lakeisha Landrum-Pierre, a 30-something founder of Emmeline Ventures, an early-stage fund focusing on seeded tech-based, female-founded startups. This interferes with their business model. It's not that they're just wonderful people trying to help out a specific gender or a specific race. They make money in this space. They're pitched to investors. They're pitched to sponsors that just give them free money to pass away as grants. Is that we're targeted in this space. We're going to discriminate and only target these entrepreneurs of this skin color, of this gender. So give us your money and we'll put it to work helping that social cause. But what I am actually most hopeful about is the fact that there wasn't a mass exodus from the space yet. So the scare tactic didn't necessarily result in a bunch of my peers leaving the space. I think because of the resilience of groups like ours. It's like, yeah, you can try to use scare tactics, but we'll just change how we talk about what we're doing because future leaders are watching. You're still going to get sued. You're still going to get lawsuits. You're still going to get in trouble. And making public statements like this that wind up in an article in Forbes is not going to look good as evidence in front of a judge. Evan Wilson, for instance, a Gen Z founder of Scaffold Education, an edutech platform that helps K-12 educators organize student data. An alum of Techstars, the well-known pre-seed investing and mentorship program for early-stage entrepreneurs, Wilson said he knows what Pathways to Inclusion can do for young founders of color like him. Before being a part of Techstars, he said, he was immediately impacted by Coded By, a youth-focused tech career development program based in Philadelphia. He participated in the program as a teen. These programs are good. They're excellent, and they're great for networking. They don't have to discriminate against people based on race, skin color, gender, or sexual preference. You can actually have respect for other people in the country and not be divisive, and include everyone in these programs. It may impact your ability to hustle it as a narrowly focused program that you could then raise money from Coca-Cola from. Maybe you can't run the same game you would like to run, and you can't make yourself as important and popular as you might want to be. You can't leverage yourself. You could still do good, and you can still probably make a lot of money. And then on a merit basis, maybe your program is the most successful because it's the best one in the world. But trying to go to corporate sponsors and leverage yourself as someone who's special and unique because you discriminate against other people, that's really wrong. It's not legal, and it shouldn't be done. Quote, as a young person aspiring to build a career in technology, securing investors for your idea and everything, you're not really treated like someone that people want to have a serious conversation with. It all depends on how you present yourself to investors. They know if you're serious. You present yourself as passionate, knowledgeable, and serious. If you can't do those things, you're not entitled to money. You haven't earned the money. You don't have the merit as an entrepreneur to get the money. And yes, I've raised money from investors before. I know what this is. People just want to see that you're dedicated to what you're doing to an unreasonable degree. You have to stand out as different from everyone else. Not based on your skin color, your gender, or your sexual preferences. It's based on how passionate you are and how focused and dedicated you are to getting a job done. He continues, you're treated as someone who is a charity case or a token. So Coded By was an organization for me where there were some very real conversations off the bat that have persisted for a long time. Well, that's what people are asking for, is to be treated as a token because of their gender and their skin color. That's wrong. It's not good for the individual. It's not good for society. The only person benefiting from something like that are the people that are running the game, the people that are running the hustle. Rendell Solomon, the director of VC's Include Fellowship program for emerging fund managers, said his work can be likened to an act of powerful resistance. Resisting intelligence? Apparently, yes. Quote, we want our fellows to know that they are not alone in this journey, Solomon said. No matter what is happening around them within the marketplace, with investors, they are not alone. And that in and of itself is powerful when it comes to overcoming the types of challenges that we are discussing in this conversation, whether it's backlash and DEI or lack of funding. They know that VCI, both our team, our staff, our advisors, our board, our funding partners, and their fellow cohort members, that's more than both, that's several, and their fellow cohort members are specifically engaged to support them moving forward. Speed adds, quote, we're really in a time where we need to be hyper-vigilant about being able to lean on one another. Yeah, it's called networking. It's been around for certainly since before Western civilization, people have been networking. So yes, networking is important. If you're able to identify leaders from underrepresented communities, especially Black communities, and give them an opportunity to thrive and to support because they themselves end up giving back to those same communities and also help to improve the conditions of the company themselves who invest in them. That is definitely a run-on sentence. It doesn't make sense, but I'm going to leave it in there because he said it. Networking is important no matter what your skin color is, what you do professionally, and also what you do personally. It's good to know other people. And no, none of that is new. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.